Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us in a panel discussion on exploring diverse career paths. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you all that this event is part of the Professional Development Series of the Graduate Student Council. By attending this event, you will earn credits towards your professional development certificate. So please make sure to sign in the attendance sheets at the back tables near the entrance before you leave. The sheet in the back contains a QR code. All you have to do is scan that, and that should log you or check you in through Org Central. Now, to get started with our panel discussion, we've invited some experts from various industries and government today who will share their insights into the challenges and opportunities and provide tips on how to succeed in these fields. I'd like to invite you all to ask questions and share your thoughts. This is a great opportunity for you to learn more about careers in industry and government. I have a set of questions I will ask, but please don't hesitate to ask our panelists any questions you have at any time. Joining us, we have Dr. Brenda Opper. Dr. Brenda is a research molecular biologist at the USDA Agricultural Research Laboratory in Manhattan, Kansas. She specializes in functional genomics of stored product insects and has applying high throughput sequencing to evaluate toxin mode of action and then insecticide resistance. Dr. Alpert leads projects sequencing the genomes of various stored product pests and has recently started working on genomic resources to develop insects as a sustainable protein source. Working with All Things Bugs LLC, she has collaborated on a Department of Defense DARPA ASPER project to develop genetic resources for various insects and improve their protein and vitamin content for animal feed. Next, joining us is Dr. Kamesh. Dr. Kamesh is the Director of Vaccine Development for Merck Animal Health in Ames, Iowa, and he is visiting K-State this week as K-State's Alumni Fellow. Dr. Kamesh received his master's and PhD degrees in diagnostic medicine and pathobiology from K-State in 2003 and 2008. Since completing his graduate work, Dr. Kamesh has had a successful career in research and development. In his current role at Merck Animal Health, he is the global lead for RNA and DNA-based vaccine platform technologies across the species. Next, sitting next to Dr. Kamesh, we have Morgan Olmsted. Morgan received her bachelor's degree in biology at Ohio State or Ohio University. So I'm sorry. In 2016, and her master's in biology at the University of New Hampshire in 2018, with a research focus on insect microbiomes and reproductive behavior. She joined Vanderbilt University Medical Center's sequencing corps after graduation, and after 2 years, joined the USDA as a research technician for Dr. Brenda Lab, focusing on sequencing technologies and continuing insect microbiome research. She was recently accepted into North Carolina State's entomology PhD program and the Genetics and Genomic Fellowship. And finally, joining us, we have Anthony Ibarra. Anthony is the Associate Director of the K-State Career Center. He serves as a liaison to the College of Engineering, College of Agriculture, Planning and Design, and to graduate students in the College of Arts and Sciences. He has been with the K-State Career Center for 12 years. He earned his bachelor's degree in business administration with a focus on human resources and a master's in counseling and student development from K-State. Prior to working with the Career Center, Anthony held positions at the Library of Congress and the Kansas Department of Commerce as a workforce service specialist. So please welcome our panelists for today. Again, please don't hesitate to ask our panelists any questions you have at any time. I have a set of questions that I will be asking our panelists. So I'll start the discussion off by asking our first question. Can you give me an elaborate, or can you elaborate briefly on your educational and professional background? What was the focus of your study? And what was your professional journey to your position, including any other positions you previously held, if any?
Can you hear me better? Okay. I'm actually a proud graduate of K-State Department of Biochemistry. I have my PhD in that. So thank you. And I did a postdoc. Immediately after that, I came over to the lab on the hill. That's where I work. That big grain storage tower that you see on the hill, that's our lab. And I did a couple of postdocs there and just hung on until I actually got a what we call an SY position. It's a permanent scientist position. And I've been there more than 30 years. And like what I do, obviously, or I still wouldn't be there. Is that what you needed?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Cool. I'm Kamesh Sirireddy. I'm a trained veterinarian from India. I came to K-State 22 years ago to pursue my master's and continued with PhD program at Department of Diagnostic Medicine Pathobiology at K-State. And after finishing my PhD program, I got an opportunity to work for a animal health industry developing vaccines for food animals in Minnesota. I moved there. I worked for the company for 5 years, and then I got another opportunity to go join Boehringer Ingelheim Animal Health, which is a much bigger global organization, and moved to Iowa, worked with vaccines for companion animals, cats, dogs, and horses for 8 years. And then very recently, 2 years ago, I moved to another company, Merck Animal Health, based in Ames, Iowa, same location, and continuing to work with R&D and operations to develop vaccines for food animals as well as companion animals. So I'm glad to be here.
My summary kind of, is that too loud? My summary kind of went over exactly what I've been through the past few years, but I did get my bachelor's not that long ago. My master's also not that long ago. So for people who are more newer or who haven't joined the workforce yet, I can do more commenting on what the current state is for younger professionals, kind of what difficulties they are and what you should expect. I just got accepted to a PhD position. So if there's undergrads or masters like looking to ask about that, I can also comment on that. After grad school, I didn't have much at all research experience in my undergrad. Still managed to get into grad school where I did research, took some, I think I'll talk about this later, but like a molecular workshop. And then I ended up at a sequencing core. So a basic like after graduate technician position with the Vanderbilt University Medical Center. And then COVID happened. Nashville is very expensive to live in. So I found a job working with Brenda Oper in her lab, and it was the perfect kind of research storm. And now I'm here.
Hi, my name is Anthony. Very humbled and happy to be here on this pretty, they said experts, and that's probably that way down over there. So in the Career Center, we work with students and all that fun stuff. We'll talk about some of the things that we at the Career Center do to help support that. As far as my journey, it's kind of, I tripped and fell into the path that I'm in. I started out at K-State as a management information systems major, did an internship, realized I liked working with people more so than computers. And so I switched my major into human resources. So after that and some networking, I did a couple of more internships at the Library of Congress, and that's how I ended up there for a couple of years before I found my way back to Kansas with the Kansas Department of Commerce, working as a workforce services specialist, where I worked with all age groups, whether they were out of school or 5 years from retiring. Now, this was in 2007 during the recession that was happening. And so up there where I was working at, we had a lot of manufacturing folks that were maybe about 5 years from retiring, and their plant was shut down and they had to find new jobs. So I've worked with that population and working to help figure out how to build up those skills and figure out how to help those folks out. 2011, I found a great opportunity to work in the Career Center, working with employers, and have been there through this day, allowing myself to, K-State has provided an opportunity to allow me to work and pursue a master's degree in counseling and student development, and working with students. One thing that I found in this journey, especially while in Kansas City, was that working with students was really a passion of mine. Now, what was the vehicle for that? Well, that is K-State in the Career Center. And so maybe in some of the things that we'll talk, when we look at potential opportunities, it's identifying the passion, networking, and recognizing that the vehicle for you to succeed beyond or even outside of the academic area is going to vary, and that's okay. So that's my journey.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? If not, we're gonna ask the next one. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. There are days when I wake up and I say, how do I know this is the thing that I want to do? And that's totally okay. I think there is oftentimes a lot of outside pressure that we feel that we need to kind of remove for ourselves and allow ourselves grace to really be like, it's okay to not have a good day. And in the field that we're on. How do you know that you're ready? You just do what you can do, and I have the saying, and people aren't as big of fans, but I think sometimes it's okay to kind of go with this. As long as I do what I can do, that's all I can do. And as long as I do all I can do, well, that's all I can do. And so when you look at knowing when you're ready and knowing, if this is where we want to be, it's not a matter of choosing right or wrong options in the day. It's just knowing that there are different options and different paths, and being okay and secure in your own work and being confident to go ahead and take that step forward.
So I'm in a transitional period right now where last fall is when I started applying for my next step in grad school. Basically, how I feel is when you get kind of complacent or you get really content for maybe, so far it's been like 2 years, every 2 years I just kind of started switching around, where you feel very comfortable in your position and you feel knowledgeable, and then you're just like, you start getting that itch, or like you start to tingle and you're like, oh, there's more I can do. There's something like if you feel like tight in your skin when it's kind of ready for you to move to that next step. So I'm not really ready to leave from my current position at the USDA. I love the research I'm doing. I plan on continuing doing research with Brenda, but I was ready to start my PhD because I'm turning 30 this year. And to me, that's like, I should start that. From previous one, when I left Vanderbilt, a lot of it was because it was just too expensive to live in Nashville. Even with a roommate, it's pricey and you're not paid enough to do it. And then also COVID hit that year and I lived with my parents for 3 months until I got this position. But I think you just know, like you just have a feeling inside of you like, all right, I think I've hit like my peak, especially when you're younger, you want to keep gaining new experiences and keep moving. And then at a certain point, you hit a wall where you're not going to gain anything else. And then you're just like, okay, next job, next time. At least that's how I feel.
Yeah, great responses. In my case, when I was finishing vet school, I wanted to do something more than being a clinical veterinarian. So I just pursued graduate school. And then when you're done with it, grad school will tell you, you're ready for graduation, right? And then master's was easy because 2 years, it just goes like that quick. And then and halfway through PhD, you realize like, when am I going to be done? So but seriously, you have to align with your with your supervisor and satisfy all the requirements of grad school and all that. So for me, like the other speaker was saying, I was 30 when I was finishing my PhD. You have to do something, right? Finish off and start your life. So, and then which direction I took, how do I know? Honestly speaking, I was open to anything that comes to me as long as it shows a path for me to succeed. I didn't have any fixed destination or, where this is the opportunity I want. I was looking for either going to academia with a postdoctoral fellowship from a good university, if it aligns with where I want to go. Being a veterinarian, I want to stick with veterinary field research-wise. So I was only looking for opportunities which will allow me that. The labs which would let me continue in the veterinary field. And then industry-wise, same thing. Work in the animal health industry. Don't want to switch anything. So in my case, I got a little lucky, I should say. I got an opportunity to pursue that in a smaller company, and then I took the opportunity and left. Took the opportunity and finished my PhD and left that company. And moving from that company to the next company, the calling for me was. We were bought by another company when I was with the first one. And I was very excited to be part of a larger company, but I didn't see that growth opportunity. Meanwhile, I got a call from a recruiter that they are looking for people like me in a different place. So I just took it and it worked out. So you will know it when you can't grow any further in your organization beyond what you are, then you would know that you want to grow somewhere or or do something about it. Get yourself educated by like going into PhD program or find some place.
So I'll come at this probably from some ways the same and some ways different than what has been talked about. I was a non-traditional student too. I graduated late and I had kids. So that was one consideration that that limited my choices. I had to work, and I had to work in a place that was nice enough to raise kids, and Manhattan fit those choices. And I had a couple of choices coming out of PhD, and one that was more aligned to what I've been trained to do. I worked on eye diseases, and so I had a postdoc opportunity to work in that same field. But then I also had this new thing to work with insects that I didn't know anything about. I was a protein chemist, but I didn't know anything about insects, but the pay was a lot better. So that was one of the major factors. Having kids, I needed to have a good job to take care of them because they had been struggling, latchkey kids, for a long time while I was in graduate school. So you kind of, you go with the flow, and you think back where I am now, that you could have gone in a lot of different directions and what your life would have been like if you went in those directions. But, you just do what you do and you make the best choices. But one thing that I've learned, especially with my kids being in their jobs now, is that you need to be happy in what you're doing. And if you're not happy in that situation, you really need to try to find another, solution, because there's nothing that's more miserable than working for a company, my son's case, that was just not a good fit. And so now he's at a small startup and so much happier and doing so much better. So, look for those opportunities. I think we're going to talk about that, maybe about networking. Networking is a really important thing to always do, no matter if you're happy or not. you build those contacts and people that you know, so that if you're in a situation then where you want to try to find another opportunity, you can go to the people you know and try to find things. But I really envy today's students. I think I said this in my seminar at biochemistry. I really envy the students, because I think you have so many more choices than we did when I graduated. Because not only do you have industry and academia, but there's so much private startup kind of initiatives, and a lot of the networking on the internet, and small companies and things. I think you have more opportunities to really do what you really have a passion for. Passion is an important word, so
Thank you.
good question.
I guess going off of that, how did you go about navigating the job search and application process? Did you have a mentor that guided you through the process, or are there resources you'd recommend students to utilize as they explore their career paths and go on the job market?
So in my case, I had people approach me for the postdoc opportunities that I had, but I can tell you, working in government, all of our jobs are advertised on USA. What is it, Morgan? USAjobs.gov, yeah. And if you see a job there that you're interested in, and usually they will give the contact person or the person that you'd be working with, please reach out to that person and let them help you with the application. The applications are not seen by us until they get filtered through HR, and HR doesn't always know what we're really looking for. So we can help you with the keywords and the way to frame your application so that it'll actually get past these people and get to us so we can see you. So it's really important that you have a conversation with whoever that person is. Don't be afraid to reach out, because we can help you with the application process. Because I've heard so many stories of people that tried to apply for jobs and they get filtered out by HR and we never see them. So that's the way the government works. So.
Thank you. So how did I approach? In my case, I think the first job is because it was all networking for me, not because of my network, but somebody else's network. So I approached the faculty in my department to find contacts in the industry or even in the academia and for postdoctoral fellowships. Some of the interviews for my postdoctoral fellowships came from me interacting with the other faculty in the meetings. You know, you'll attend meetings, right? When you're doing PhD, you go to scientific conferences, you meet other faculty from other universities, and take the opportunity to introduce yourself, and then say you are in so and so lab, and you are finishing your PhD, you are looking for postdoctoral opportunities. They would know you, and then if they have an opening, they'll seek more information from you. So a couple of my interviews for me came through like that. And the interview from the industry came from another faculty member in the department who knows their previous student was in the company. So you just call them and say, by the way, I have another guy who may be right fit for your organization, and then talk to him. That's all you need. That's all you can get out. Expect also. You don't expect, put a good word for you and let you go reflect yourself in the interview process. That's how it worked out for me. And from there on, I think once you are in the job market, it's all about, you should have to build your own network. Nowadays, we have a lot more social networks to rely on. LinkedIn is one of the big one, our professional networks. So keep building your connections, and then from your company, people always move to a different company, and don't ignore them when they leave. Just keep that connection. So every now and then. So that way you will have your own network that if you are wanting to change or wanting to grow, you can use those connections for your own growth. and it helps everybody. That's what I mean to say. So that's all I have at this time. So.
So after graduation, I didn't really have a network yet. And I like, even through my master's, going to conferences and all that, I still hadn't built that network. So I had to go more of a cold approach where I just went on Indeed and just looked for the entire country. And because I was open to moving, and a big thing in this field is you have to be open to moving. So I think I just applied through Indeed or like through the website for my first job. And it was more, I guess, like skill based, or they saw that I had a passion for a certain thing and it fit in with what direction they were going. One thing I will say is I know a big thing nowadays is not sending like thank you letters after an interview or sending like thing. I do suggest though, if something happens where your call gets interrupted or like if something happens with the interview, call them back and make sure, you know, like, oh, I'm very interested in this job. I see that we missed our thing. Like, I'm still interested. Like, they want to know that you're still interested. Even after the job, if you send up a follow-ups email saying you're still interested, because like any job I've had, me putting that extra thing has gotten me that job. Like I've had multiple times where I missed the time zone because I didn't realize there was a time zone change. And I immediately called them and went, hey, I think we missed it. And they really appreciated me calling to show that I had that initiative. I was still interested. That's for the first job. Still did not have a network going into the second job for the USA jobs. So I did the same thing where I kind of cold looked on the website and found this, mashing my two interests together. I don't even think I contacted Brenda. I think I just put in my application for it. I do suggest though, and what they're finding is studies, especially with females when you're applying, is that you undervalue yourself and men tend to overvalue their skills. With government jobs, they do a self-evaluation form where you mark how confident you are in this skill or this skill. Lie. Like even if, but not like, don't be like, oh, I'm not like, if you're like, when it was like, have you ever managed a chemical inventory? If you have the ability to, say yes. Not even if you've like, in my head was like, oh, I've never done that. Oh, mark no. Or like limit it, like no, lie. Say that you, if you have the ability to do it, say that you can do it. Otherwise, they're going to put you on a lower pay scale and you should be at a higher pay scale. We learned that. So yeah. Just like don't undervalue, just because you've never done something doesn't mean you don't have the ability to within a very short time frame. So yeah, within a year, I like jumped up a pay scale because I initially went in too low. So just think about truly valuing the work that you've done and the skills, especially for females, like don't undervalue your work. You have the ability to do it. Just say that you can. And then through my PhD is one of Brenda's like best friends. So that was also networking.
So for me, for my job journey, navigating the job search and application process. So I was fortunate enough to where my uncle, through his networking skills, had found another Hispanic male from Kansas that was working in Washington, D.C. And that's how I was able to get some internships. So it's not just your network, it's the network of the people around you that can help you out. And it's because of that, I was able to go to Washington, D.C. and work in the Library of Congress and have some fantastic opportunities. Out of that, I got a great mentor out of Mr. Sandate, who's now retired and living the dream, going golfing every day. But that taught me the importance of networking. And so for, the part of this question that I think we saw is like the resources that the Career Center can offer you. Now in the Handshake, you all as graduate students will have access to Handshake, and Handshake has a couple of cool features in there where you can kind of reach out to some of those recruiters directly on their job postings and whatnot. And you will have access to Handshake even beyond your K-State career. Okay, so even after you graduate, you will be able to utilize Handshake for a job search as long as you keep your account active and whatnot. So capitalizing on the network and building that network is so key. LinkedIn is a fantastic resource. If we don't have a LinkedIn, we need to get a LinkedIn account, because a LinkedIn is not so much, LinkedIn has a very nice, robust job search function in there. But the real magic with LinkedIn happens in the networking. Not everyone can get their name on the side of a building at K-State, but K-Staters do want to help K-Staters, and we can build that network. And part of networking can feel a little weird and a little bit awkward, but just remember, we're not asking for a job. We're not asking for a handout. We just want to learn more about the information. It's kind of like when you are able to reach out to a recruiter at USA Jobs. Like, what are you looking for in this position? Tell me what stands out for you all on a resume. What does the day-to-day look like at this opportunity? And we can get that information from making connections through LinkedIn and through Handshake as well. Fun fact, if you go in at your LinkedIn page and at the top in the search bar, you type in Kansas State University, a nice little power cat will pull up over there. Click on that, and anyone that has said that they have attended or graduated from K-State will be a part of that. So then you click on that page, you go to the alumni part of that page. There's a little menu right there, it says alumni. You can click on that. And then at that point, we can kind of see where our alumni are working at, where they're living at, and all of that. So then at that point, that's when we can start putting in the interests that we have and see what other K-Staters are either in that role or doing something similar at a company that we are interested in. And then we can, at that point, we can try to connect or send them messages and say, hey, I see you're doing this at Merck Animal Health. I'm curious about what Merck is doing in this role. Do you have a chance to maybe visit? Or I'm interested in applying for Merck. I see you're there. Do you have any tips or any advice about the application process? And so building out that networking is still a key. We know in the Career Center that so many jobs are still found through the ability to network and make those connections. And if we're able to do that, we will see that job search process kind of come out a little bit easier, right? If we're able to talk to a recruiter about our application, that recruiter can say, okay, well, let me know when you apply so I can go ahead and get your application out of that. And that's also very important when we look at applicant tracking systems, because if we can make a connection with that recruiter at that company where the applicant tracking system exists, then that recruiter can go ahead and just pull your resume out of that. There's a little bit more freedom in industry to be able to do that, more so than maybe USA Jobs and the government opportunities, but know that those are options. And so as you go through and as you start that job search process, know that the Career Center has those resources for you. We can talk about your LinkedIn profile. We can talk about job searching and connecting through that job search process. We can do more than just kind of resume and mock interview. We can really help you in that job search process and really try to figure out a way to let you have a little bit more control of that job search process, because sometimes it can feel very overwhelming and almost like we're just floundering in the sea. We don't know what way to go. Well, there's things that we can do to kind of allow us to give a little bit of a start in a direction and maybe come up for air a little bit.
Thank you so much. At this time, does anyone have any questions for our panelists? No? So my next question is, what do you find most satisfying or rewarding about your job? For the panelists who work in industry and government, are there any benefits unique to working in your sector?
So I'll start, obviously, for me, working with students and seeing students succeed, right? For me, it's a passion point. And you know, and here's what I say about passion points. We don't know, our body's doing things, we don't know what's happening, right? We sit up taller, our voice gets higher, our eyes get bigger when we start talking about things we're excited about. And so whenever I get to see a student make that connection, and I called it earlier, the collaboration goosebumps, when you start working and you see the students get it, and you know, you make that connection and they're on the right track, you know, that's exciting. I mean, it's the intrinsic value of helping someone just resonates really with me. And that's what I like about doing what I do.
My favorite part is that I'm juggling about 12 different tasks at one time in 1 hour. So I'm constantly jumping from my computer to the insects to this, and it's just constantly like circling. Something's on a heat block or thermocycler, I'm doing something else. I'm doing something else. I can't just sit and focus on one task at one time. That's not something I have the ability to do. So being a technician, I get that opportunity to just like jump around, and that's good for my brain. I also have a very flexible schedule for the most part. Like some people do come in with their normal 9 to 5, but I'm like shifted a bit later in the day, which works for me, or coming in on the weekends or working like, so I do get a little more flexibility on that side. I like that Brenda gives me the opportunity to help design experiments that I'm given, that she has confidence that I'm able to do that. So even though I'm not a senior scientist or something, I still get listened to. She still listens to me and still like takes in my input. So those are some of my favorite things about like my daily work.
So what do you think most satisfying or rewarding about your job, right? One of the things we do is to develop safe and efficacious vaccines and also affordable for animals. And I know the problems in the animal health industry, what animals need. Being able to deliver the product to them would be a satisfying thing. Launching the product and making sure it succeed. It helps company to grow, and also for betterment of human health, animal health, and human-animal bond. That's one way I see satisfaction in it. For some of the diseases we always have, we already have vaccines, but developing a newer, improved versions with, to be specific, ease of administration. Instead of administering with a needle, which is a standard practice, we develop something that can be administered without needleless delivery platforms. So those are the things that enable painless injections to animals. That's what satisfying for me, to be able to bring that technology and safety for both people administering it and also the animals taking them. So, and second thing, within the company, right? This is outside. Within the company, any bigger organizations have a very complicated and matrix functional groups. So keeping all these groups on the same line of focus and delivering the value on a timely basis is something very critical for the overall success of the company. So being able to sit there and then talk to all these folks and align them into one goal, make sure we don't lose expertise that is existing in this part of the organization, not shared with other groups because of silo effects, making sure that efficient way of information is moving and better utilization of resources and delivering value to the organization is part of my job. So I see a lot more satisfaction in that. In a quick example, if somebody in US is having a technical issue, but there is a group within our company elsewhere who are experts in it, being able to connect them and ensure that process flows smoothly, and then the issue is resolved, for example, in a timely way, that adds a lot of value to the timeline. So that satisfies you when you were able to connect some people or do things like that. Just a quick example to make things aligned. You'll feel that much quicker than actually developing a product and releasing in the field. That takes years, but this happens probably in months. So.
Okay, and back to working in the government. There's good things I like about working in the government, and there's bad things. So I'll try to give you the whole picture and not try to whitewash it a little bit. It is a stable job, and you are rated on your performance. And for the most part, it's a pretty unbiased rating system. At least every 5 years, we come up with what we have to present as a case write-up. And you're rated by your peers, not by the people that you work with in the lab, but it's a outside rating. And so I think that's a fairly good process, because it's based on your performance, based on your publications, based on your impact, what you've done. And yeah, I like, we are able to travel somewhat. we're beginning to travel more now again. During the pandemic, that was mostly online. But we can go to meetings and meet other people, network, develop new collaborations. So I have collaborations with people around the world that have been really great to work with. And so it helps you grow in your field and just keep that excitement about what you're doing. You also have somewhat leeway in your research projects. And so even though I started working in the area of insect biochemistry, physiology, there was a time where I just really felt like I couldn't do another insect bioassay or another in vitro assay. It just was too repetitive. So it was at the time where functional genomics was beginning, and I went to a meeting and I got training and started sequencing. And so that was really exciting because it opened up a new way of approaching these same questions that I had. And now, more recently, I had people come to me for genetic resources for the insects that they want to develop for the food industry, primarily not food that you wouldn't be eating, these crickets and mealworms and things. That's not so much what we're working on. We're working on developing them as feed for animals. So a supplemental feed for animals, because we have a problem with sustainable protein, and insects are a good source of sustainable protein. So working in that area of developing those genetic resources has been something that is needed, and it's kind of like I was at the right place at the right time. The things I don't like about working for the government are the things probably a lot of jobs have. There's a lot of training, so much training, too much training. And it's a big time waster. And so I don't like that part of it. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of meetings. There are a lot of things that you know, that you have to participate in that really take you away from what you want to do, and that's research. You know, that's probably the biggest. I mean, we could probably think of a few more, Morgan and I, but those are the biggest, I think. But we do have a set budget. And so for people that go into academia, you're on that wheel of trying to get grant funding. You know, you're on the tenure track wheel. And we do get a amount of money to do, you know, research with every year. And but that also covers our trips and student helpers and things like that as well. And so we do try to supplement that with grants and things like that too. But we're not pushed in that direction as much as academia. In academia, you really are in a different situation. And then in industry, I think maybe you're in a situation where you don't have you don't have the ability to work on different kinds of projects or switch. You have more of a structure and a team and a goal. So if you like that kind of, you know, work, then industry is better, and it certainly pays better, I think, than academia or the government. So.
Thank you.
Yes. I am. I've been adjunct with entomology since early on when I got the position. And more recently, I applied for graduate student faculty, which is not adjunct, but I can have graduate students because I do have a graduate student now that I'm supervising in biochemistry. So I have those two. Yeah, and I have had students, entomology students, undergrads and grad students that work in my lab. And I've supervised them, and I've also been a part of their graduate program. And then now that I'm approved as a graduate faculty for biochem, I can do the same there as well. But we do hire students. We hire both undergrad and graduate students. That's, something that we can do because we are affiliated with the university. I can start that off because I just filled out a form for that to get students in the lab. One of the best things that I'm looking for is somebody dependable, somebody that I know is going to, be there when they say they're going to be there, or let me know if they can't. We are flexible. When I hire a student, I tell them your school is more important than this job. So, if they need to rearrange their schedule, but I need to kind of, have to stay in touch with the students. So being dependable is the most important thing. We do like students to have some training in biology, chemistry, but I can train you. So if you've got, some basic concepts in biology and chemistry, then that's probably good enough to start working in the lab. We can teach you what you need to know.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Somebody with who is having motivation to learn and be part of a growing organization with the right attitude. How do you demonstrate or figure it out is challenge for both sides. For me to figure out, or for industry to figure out in 1 hour interview, and then the candidate to show that is also a challenge. So, but yeah, we learn it through time and doing it many times, I guess. So, yes, go ahead.
No, you.
Okay. So actually, that's a good one. We get guidance from HR on different type of questions we can ask. So that helps. An example of a question could be, technically we can, in my life, I was asked, they'll say a disease name, for example, and then ask me to see depth of my knowledge, for example. What do you think is the main organ that is being affected by this disease? Certain diseases affect liver, and then how do you approach it? What are the current options available in the marketplace, or what do you think is lacking in the current products? How do you approach it? That could be the technical side of it. The attitude side of it could be like this. Have you had any conflict with your colleagues? How did you manage it? What was the outcome? Can you give an example? Did you have to disagree with your manager at any time because of ethical or moral reasons? How did it go? What did you do? Can you give an example? And those kind of things could be telling about how he behaves or interacts with colleagues up in the chain, parallel, down, all that things. There could be many examples like this. So they don't have to give something from work. They can give from personal life too. We give the freedom. If you don't have to pick it from your work life, give it from your personal life too. So yeah, those are the things. I don't think there is any right answer or wrong answer for any of these questions, but yeah, those are the types. Again, HR would help us. You can Google these questions too. There are like probably no more than 200 questions, right? Asked in a similar, different words, but trying to get the same answer from you, similar related answer. If one experience can provide answers for 3 or 4, questions. So I would encourage students to check those general questions and then, think about your past experiences personally, professionally, or where you can quote an example, because we don't want generic terms. We need an example is what the assessment. If you don't give an example, then you are just making up stuff. I do make up stuff. We don't know the answer, right? So normal tendencies. So that's how I think it helps people to ready about that. So
I disagree. There are wrong answers. Because I interviewed for a job with Monsanto a long time ago. And it was a long interview process, the whole day. And I went from place to place. And at the end I had, they have HR grilling you. And they asked me what my most successful accomplishment was. And I just thought about it and I said, my kids. And that was not the answer that they wanted. They wanted, what research had I done that I was most proud of. And so I didn't get the job, but I wasn't sure I really wanted the job anyway. But there are wrong answers. For students, when I hire students, I don't generally ask them a lot of questions. I try to just talk to them and get a feel, how do you feel about working with bugs? Do you have any aversions to that? And what kinds of things have you done and things like that. But for, like with Morgan, I don't remember the questions that I asked you, but when we interview people, we have to have a written down set of questions that we ask each person. It has to be the same EEO kind of stuff. And so, I will ask things mostly about background and things like that. We do get transcripts, both with students and with other job applicants. I don't care so much about those. I think, some people really struggle sometimes and some people don't, and that doesn't make you successful in the job. What I do care about are references. And so make sure your references are going to give you a good reference, because I call all of them and talk to them at length about, the potential employee. So I think that's important. Did you guys want to comment?
So I've only really hired undergrad students in Brenda's lab. I did a little bit, but my biggest thing that I look for is enthusiasm. I only really want people in the lab who enjoy insects or enjoy our part of research. If you're I'm not a big fan myself of like, oh, I'm going to be a medical student, I need to have volunteer experience, it doesn't matter where, then I'm going to be a little less favorable. I know some people have different opinions about that. I want someone who's just really into weird stuff. So for me, we do more of the talking based, where we'll like show you around the lab and see, like, just kind of gauge your interest in it. I did not even look at transcripts for some of our students, because I don't care about that. I'd rather have someone who's interested in a little bad at math than someone who's not interested and is like a 4.0 student. To me, it's really about like how interested you are, because I can teach that, I can work with that. I can't work with someone who doesn't care.
So real quick, when working with people, and so we just got done hiring for a GA for next year. We're really excited that they accepted our offer. And so one thing that we really look for is empathy. Empathy goes a long way to better communication with our teammates and our, being able to put ourselves in other people's shoes and to understand where they're coming from can help us get better lines of communication. And to Dr. Kamesh's point over there, when answering those are called behavior-based questions, give me an example, tell me a time, tell me when. And those behavior-based questions is not so much about giving the right or wrong answer, it's about giving people guiding people through your thought process. So that way they understand what you may do in the future, right? It's because past actions can predict future behavior. So if you tell me, tell me about a time when you've had to manage multiple projects, you're going to give me an indication of how you might work with, if you have 5 projects going on, right? And personal life works great. Tell me time you had a disagreement. Roommates are the best way that we can sometimes answer that, right? I had a disagreement with my roommate. They were partying until 3 a.m. I had a test the next day and I was not having that, right? So using that example, The Career Center has a resume guide that has a whole bunch of interview questions that you can go look at. We also give guidance on ways to answer these behavior-based questions through, I like the acronym START. Identify the situation, talk about the task that was given, the action that you took, not anyone else. This is what I did in that situation. The result that happened after that, and then the takeaway. What did I learn? What am I going to do to get better at the future in case this situation comes up? So we do have those resume guides in the Career Center. Feel free to stop by. I did not bring any, but you can also go to our website and we have the virtual resume guide, and you can pull those examples and also questions that you can ask at the end of the interview. Here's a freebie. If offered this role after 6 months, what skill set do you hope that I walk away with, right? After this internship experience, because that can give you an idea of the kind of work that you're going to be doing or the kind of work you need to be prepared for. So that way you can hit the ground running on day one.
Thank you. So we only have a few minutes left of our session today. Does anyone have any last questions they want to ask our panelists? If not, I'll ask the last question to close off our session. So what final piece of advice do you have for students who are considering a career path outside of academia after graduation?
Utilize your networks. List things on your resume that are relevant to the job. Just because it's not on the resume doesn't mean we can't speak to it in an interview. And I know it's hard to let go of some of the research and some of the publications and some of the things that we've done, but know that industry resumes with a master's degree, you're at about 1.5 pages. PhD, you're at about 2 pages. So not everything's going to fit on there. So it's okay to let some of that go. We just need to make sure that our work that we've done is relevant to the positions we're applying for. Do not use the same one resume for every single job.
It's really hard out there. And a lot of people who've been in their positions for a long time, a lot of older people, I don't know really, I don't think they understand how hard it is right now, where you're sending out 40 job applications and you hear back from 2 people maybe. Be smarter than I am. Yeah. And try to use, because the people who are in your class are your future connections, the people who've graduated. Look to the people who graduated the last few years, especially if you work in, I don't know if you guys are in labs or not, but try to reach out to them. It's hard. I'm sorry.
I think the previous speakers covered it really well. Tailor your resume to the job and don't put 10-page resume, especially for industry. You don't need a longer resume. You just need 2 pages. So every year you update your resume and then you have to add some new skill. You can't be same. 3 years ago, your resume can be same as 2025. So you do something about it and then you see what you can delete from your 2-page thing so that you can add the new thing. If you don't adding that, if you're not adding that, then it's a problem. So, and then networks. Use your networks. If you're a fresh student, talk to your faculty in the department, like senior students who graduated before you. The advisor would know the contact information. You may not have it, but use the networks and then tailor your resume. Send as many applications as you want. I mean, I'm not going, these days it's easy. You never know, yeah.
So I would just add that, be open to new ideas and new kinds of opportunities. Because if anyone had told me when I was in your position that, oh, well, you're eventually going to be working with insects, I would have said, you're crazy. And you're going to be working for the government, and I would say, you're really crazy. But you just never know. So look at things that you maybe didn't even think about that you'd be interested in and consider it, because you just never know where you're going to find that passion. So that's the best advice I can give you.
Awesome. I'd like to thank our panelists for generously giving their time and sharing their valuable insights with us today. So thank you, Dr. Brenda, Dr. Kamesh, Morgan, and Anthony.